Video games are effective if they can viscerally convey experiences to the player. There is perhaps no comparable feeling than for a player to experience playing through a setting that strongly evokes feelings of fear, disgust, and any other form of discomfort. We've prepared a list of 15 video game places where you wouldn't dare to return. A lineup of some of the most unsettling locations in video games. If you feel trepidation at the thought of even previewing these locations, try not to be too worried. This video won't be that bad. We hope. Forbidden Woods, BLOODBORNE. BLOODBORNE, with its abominations, can be a creepy enough game as it is, but the Forbidden Woods are particularly unsettling. Of note are the vermin hosts, which appear to be huntsmen at first, until snakes explode from their head. The abundance of other evil creatures just accelerates the eeriness of the forest. To comment more about the setting, the thing about nature is that it ends up taking on a distorted character in horror settings. Take trees, for example. The sprawling and crooked shape that trees often take ends up looking deformed in a horror-oriented context. On a separate note, for decoration, the Forbidden Woods contain a generous scattering of gravestones, some of which glow. The Flooded Basement, The Last of Us. Silence and darkness. Alone, except for a flashlight and any enemies you encounter. The flashlight may help to break the alienation created from the pitch blackness you navigate, but the infected's noises don't help to break the tension of the silence, even if it does help you identify their whereabouts before they attack. Nothing like suddenly being rushed by an infected to create good gaming memories. It can be an especially harrowing experience for people navigating the basement for the first time, unsure of where to proceed. The collapse of the hotel structure, which makes spaces feel more enclosed, also adds to a feeling of restricted movement. Ocean House Hotel, Vampire, The Masquerade. The eeriness of playing through this part of the game is bolstered by the ambient thunder and wind howling as you progress through the hotel, when it's not silent. This is not a place where you would want to stay as a visitor or as a player, unless you find the idea of lights and doors exploding or objects suddenly flying all over the place to be enjoyable. Sudden loud crashing noises that last for several seconds are not appealing either. Newspapers? After the one copy that announces the hotel's grand opening, other days' news feature a murder and a murder-suicide on the front page. Check in and check out. Abyss. Distance. Distance is a psychedelic racing game, wherein your primary objective is to survive moving through tracks at high speed while evading walls and obstacles. Levels are often dark, save for futuristic buildings, but one particularly creepy level from Distance's adventure mode is called Abyss. It is much darker than many other levels, nearly pitch black through most of the track. In the beginning, you are interrupted by a sort of vision that slows down game progression while an intercom voice speaks to you. It appears again at the end, but its message is distorted and the environment around you is much more ominous. The entire ending sequence has to be experienced to be understood. It is as difficult to describe as the game itself, but it is fascinating. You are essentially being told conflicting messages about personal growth and obedience. Speaking of levels, Distance has a level editor feature and a community that creates and designs levels as well. BLIGHTTOWN, Dark Souls. While the wooden foundations of the sprawling BLIGHTTOWN in the first Dark Souls are navigable for players, from a design standpoint it creates a sense of precariousness. Floors and platforms are often uneven, which suggests lack of stability. What is below at any given moment often seems to be an abyss that just continues. Careful movement is required, an implied message reinforced by all of the narrow walkways and awkwardly formed paths, to say nothing of the enemies in BLIGHTTOWN. It's a unique expression of creating a tense locale through design that is aggressively unwelcoming to traverse through. DAYCARE Center, Dead Space 2. The DAYCARE Center sequence from Dead Space 2 is not so much outright terrifying, or it is, depending on your tastes, as it is meant to be disturbing. It's in the explosion early on in the DAYCARE Center, and the many exploding crawlers along with their wailing, that is meant to unnerve players as they progress through the stage. The nursery rhyme music in the background is foreboding rather than soothing. It's doubtful that it is meant to help anything currently alive within the center itself. Brookhaven Hospital, Silent Hill 2. Brookhaven Hospital introduces the creepy nurse enemies, as if the game needs to have new reasons to scare you. Brookhaven Hospital, as a mental institution, ties in well to the Silent Hill franchise's recurring emphasis on psychological terror and mental health. Whereas hospitals and care facilities are meant to be clean, everything in Brookhaven Hospital is dank, dark, and sometimes stained with blood. It is everything that a care facility should not be, which is exactly why James has to progress through it. There's an unwelcome surprise while playing through the level that will certainly keep many players on edge too, after encountering it. RAVENHOLM, Half-Life 2. Once full of life as a mining town, RAVENHOLM is abandoned and crawling with headcrab zombies. The town isn't always pitch black, but it features gruesome scenes like hung zombies and people. They weren't Gordon Freeman's friends anyway, but it is graphic and makes a violent statement. The voice of Grigori can be heard early as you progress through the stage, and while Grigori does help you progress through RAVENHOLM later on, he is crazed and doesn't help to cut the tense atmosphere. The abundance of propellers traps in RAVENHOLM, meant to dismember zombies or anyone or anything making contact with it, are useful in dispatching enemies, but still make RAVENHOLM a disturbing location. BLACKWOOD Sanatorium, Until Dawn. This list is about locations that you don't want to return to. Welcome to the BLACKWOOD Sanatorium from Until Dawn, a location that you have to return to, as you visit the sanatorium twice. It is dilapidated and abandoned, but a large part of why BLACKWOOD Sanatorium can be so frightening is that it feels like such an overwhelming structure, especially when you visit it for the first time. If not for the imposing stature of the BLACKWOOD Sanatorium, what awaits in your visits include a rotted corpse, a potentially dangerous encounter with a bear trap, and Wendigos, both through direct encounter and through some light viewing found on a film reel as a Wendigo appears to attack the sanatorium staff. Your return trip will not at all be like your first visit. Cellar Archives, Amnesia, The Dark Descent. This is another classic horror game experience. The water monsters feature particularly in the flooded cellar archives, though they are encountered elsewhere in the game. When you make contact with the water, or are too close to the surface of nearby water, you are vulnerable to attack from the Kerk, which are invisible and only detectable through audible and visible water splashes. In the cellar archives, you are often forced to repeatedly run forward, with little idea of where you are going. For first-time players, it is a bewildering experience. The Hive, Alien Isolation. Compared to other locations on this list, the Sevastopol Hive ranks high on outright grossness. It's a nesting ground for the xenomorph. The level itself often features shallow water segments throughout which you may be attacked by facehuggers. This, in conjunction with the disgusting webs that are found throughout the interior of the hive, and make up what almost seems to be the entirety of the place. And then there are the xenomorph eggs you occasionally encounter, and can destroy. You may also occasionally find corpses throughout the level too. The Library, Metro 2033. Early on in this level are tentacle monsters hanging from above which, while not terribly threatening, create an unsettling vibe. There are some human corpses, some bloodied and generously punctured, strewn on the floor here. The building is covered in twisted vine tentacles that give the impression of infestation, corrosion, and corruption. Something has taken over this building, and it's up to you to survive through all of it. The Nursery, Zombie. While Zombie for the Wii U, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC may not be as well known as other prominent survival horror games, it doesn't at all lack for scares. This is particularly notable when players must navigate the Baconfield Nursery. Fair warning, this is not a level that is kind to those who don't appreciate jump scares. The nursery isn't completely dark, but that isn't going to diminish the tension of progressing through the building, especially with zombies littered all over the place. Wade Elementary School, F.E.A.R 2. The Wade Elementary School level in F.E.A.R 2 features some intense encounters with series villain Alma, both psychically and in the real world. The way that she stares at the player is massively unnerving. Additionally, there's a dark hallway segment featuring a standoff with a series of ghosts that rush at you, also meant to be an assault on your willpower. While the level isn't scary to play through from start to finish, its features are harrowing. Bart's Department Store and the Mannequins, Condemned, criminal origins. Mannequins are great for horror. Look at them and they don't appear threatening at all, because mannequins are supposed to be inanimate. But look away, and maybe move around a bit, and then check back on them again, and all of a sudden they may have teleported, or they may be looking straight at you, or any number of things. In Condemned Criminal Origins, mannequins are featured throughout Bart's department store, though not all of the mannequins do anything. However, most notable is a segment wherein a group of mannequins teleport toward you as you make your way through a window and down a pit. There are also enemies posing as mannequins in this level as well, but they will attack you, and look noticeably different compared to the inanimate mannequins.
And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from Gaming Bolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.